YouTube, what's going on? What's happening? As always, I am Hadou Kid, and today I wanted to bring you a different kind of video. So amongst the people I've got to meet in the Gears community, it seems pretty split as far as experience with the franchise. Some people started from the earlier Gears games like myself in Gears 1, 2, or 3, or even Judgment, and others are newer to the franchise and they started with Gears 4 and Gears 5. I've had a chance to play with people in both categories, and one thing that came to my mind was whether you're a newer player or even have been around the block in the game, what are some things that I would have liked to know starting off or even in general that would give me more of an advantage or less of a learning curve jumping into the game. There are some things that after playing for a while and playing against many different people, you pick up, and different tips and tricks that essentially help you become more experienced and allow you to do much better at the game. And especially with Gear 6 coming up, some of these things might be very beneficial to know and practice in some of the older games so that you're prepared when the new game comes out. So without further ado, here are 5 things you should know and master in Gears before Gear 6 comes out. So the first thing I want to start off with is movement. Now, Gears of War in general is a lot slower than your typical shooter game, but nonetheless, movement is still very important when it comes to gunfights and even just overall getting to where you need to go. As you're learning Gears, a lot of times you'll see newer players essentially not maneuvering much in a battle, just more aiming rather than moving the body as well. So when I think about that, the first thing that comes to mind is you don't want to walk in a straight line. I know that sounds obvious, but when you see some of the bots and the AI players and matches, you'll notice they walk pretty linear, and that's why it's easy to pick them off and to down them. So you don't want to fall into that category of like bot walking. You definitely want to be moving left and right, even while you're running. If you don't think something's gonna happen, next thing you know, you might get hit with a headshot. So whether you're running towards somewhere or you're in a firefight, make sure you're always strafing. Try to predict where your opponents are gonna shoot next. A lot of people, they start off with the left and right strafing back and forth, which is a good starter strategy. I would just say try to mix it up some more. Don't stick to that. People who go left and right over and over are pretty easy to predict. So with that in mind, you want to mix it up. Just don't always go straight. Don't always go left, only right. Make sure you're moving in a way that is going to throw off your opponent and essentially give you the advantage when you go to take your next shot. Another thing that comes to mind is if you find yourself dying a lot coming out of a roadie run when you're trying to shoot somebody, odds are that the game, I don't think, registered you coming out quickly enough for your shot to get off. It's just one of those things that just kind of is part of the game. It's happened to me a lot, and sometimes I see it with other people as well. If you find that this is happening, then try coming out of your roadie run maybe a second earlier or just a little bit earlier. Just play with it. You'll come to learn that the timing is everything. So the sooner you can come out of your roadie run, the quicker the game can bring you out of that animation and give you extra time to register your shot. And that's especially important when you're playing with people who have lower pings, because you essentially need every advantage you can to make sure your shot gets off first. And in general, this is a pretty basic one, but make sure you're fine-tuning your controls and sensitivity settings. Whether it's in an online match or horde, just kind of play around with your movement sensitivity, your aim sensitivity, your zoom sensitivity. I wouldn't say there's a one-size-fits-all. Just make sure whatever you pick is fast enough so you can aim where you need to, but not so fast that you're missing shots. So just fine tune that, make sure you hit the sweet spot, and it'll give you a lot more comfort when you're learning some of the tricks and techniques. And when it comes to movement, you can't forget about wall bouncing. So for anybody who doesn't know what wall bouncing is, in a nutshell, it's exactly how it sounds. You're essentially bouncing from one wall to the next, and the idea is that the animation that brings you to that wall is quick enough to help you dodge a bullet, almost like you would dodge a punch or you would cross over somebody in a basketball game or something. So learning wall bouncing will take some time, but it's definitely a key skill to learn and master when it comes to shotgun battles. You'll see most of the better Gears players wall bouncing. Some of them, it might even feel like they're Super Saiyan and you can't even see them, they're so fast. So try going from wall to wall. You can even mix it up, just bouncing off the same wall. I've had people confuse me with that. You can also cancel your wall bounce mid transition to the wall. So just mix it up, kind of watch what other people are doing, practice that, and definitely try to master this one. This is one that will take you a long ways and get you to that next level as far as gunfights and Gears. So the next tip I have is about weapons. There are some new weapons in Gears, but a lot of them are actually carried over from previous games. So in general, practice makes perfect. Any experience you can get with using different guns, whether it's the torque bow and understanding the charge of that, or the M bar also that has its own charge, or just getting used to the damage that a gun will do. You know, how many shots it takes to down somebody, how many to get a headshot. Knowing those little things and getting better slowly with each of these guns will give you a big advantage when you're planning a match and maybe a gun is available and another one isn't, or your favorite gun is up and you know you can really get a lot of kills with it. So again, practice makes perfect, and a lot of times I'll go in horde, or when I was first starting off, you know, I would go in horde, and even though a lot of people think horde is boring or what have you, just getting that experience and familiarity with guns and also being in gun fights is pretty useful. Of course, you can't replace real online people with bots, but in general, not only do you get good experience with weapons overall, you get a lot of experience in what I'll say is survival. You know, when you think of Gears lore where they were fighting off armies of locusts, you kind of get that feeling, you know, how you're like in Doom, for example. Doom guy is fighting off the demons of hell. In the same sense, when you're surrounded by locusts and people coming at you in horde, being able to get out of a pinch quickly, or even just winning a multi-person fight, you know, getting 4 kill, 5 kill kind of streak in a row, it's some good experience that at least I've found carried into my online matches and helped me learn how to get those multi-kills. Another thing that's important is getting down your active reload timing. For anybody that doesn't know, active reloading is essentially a bonus you get from the little mini game that they have in the whole reloading mechanic. Every gun has their own reload timing. So while you want to make sure you're definitely not jamming your gun, you're getting it in the reload bar, getting an active reload can give you a power boost on a lot of weapons that can prove useful when you're going into a gunfight. And for some weapons like the boom shot, it turns the rocket into like a Hadouken, and even the sniper, the bullet is more powerful. So what you want to do is practice your active reload to the point where you don't have to look at it. And this is especially critical for the Lancer, for the Nasher. Making sure you can get actives back to back and ultimately not jam your gun without looking gives you more focus on what you're doing in the game and making sure you're knowing who's around you and what's going on. Kind of like when you think about basketball, if you're dribbling the ball, you don't want to be looking at your hands or at the ball. You want to be able to look straight ahead at what's going on around you while also having the same skills with the ball down low. So just take that same mentality in, that you want it to be muscle memory, so instinctive that you can work on your wall bouncing, work on getting kills, multi-kills, taking objectives, while having just reload and be instinctive. Last but certainly not least is just the Nasher shotgun in general. Obviously this will be the bulk of, I feel, most of your weapon engagements. So the few things I want to touch on is distance and positioning is very important. Obviously the further away you are from somebody, the less damage you take, but the less damage you deal as well, and vice versa. So just understanding where you are in respect to where your, they call pellets, are gonna land will help you gauge how much damage you're about to do and ultimately how you want to move yourself around in the fight. Again, positioning is important as well. It goes along with the movement aspect of it. You know, where you aim your gun is big. You can aim at somebody's midsection and do a lot of damage, but if you aim at somebody's head, again, sometimes you're gonna win a fight that somebody else might lose because they didn't realize they were aiming lower than you. So just understanding the distance and where your pellets are in respect to the person in front of you will give you a better understanding of how you're doing in a gunfight. Another key thing is really the timing of the shot. You'll notice there's a slight delay between each shot. It's not like an assault rifle where, bullets are just always coming out. You shoot, take a second, shoot, take a second. So a lot of things new players do is they'll often, I feel, panic or spam the trigger buttons or spam the fire button. And that's a big mistake to make because, again, if you think about it like boxing, when you shoot, that second in between your next shot is essentially an opportunity for me as an opponent to counter you. I can come in, and if my movement is correct and I'm dodging your shots, if you shoot and I get you in that open moment, now I'm closer, and if I time it right, I can hit you with one shot to take you out, which gives me the advantage every time. So just try to pay attention to the timing of how different people are approaching you, and sometimes you can win without even having to shoot first. 9 times out of 10, the person who shoots first is going to have an advantage. But again, if you can get somebody to miss, that's almost as valuable as hitting the first shot, because as long as you can position yourself to get the most value out of your shots up close, you should be in good shape for your next battle. And then just an obvious one that I tend to forget myself is pay attention to how much ammo you have in gunfights. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a gunfight about to deliver the final blow and I have to reload or I run out of ammo, and it's just not a good feeling. So just try to remember how many bullets you've used already, or just take a peek when you're in a battle if you can, because you just don't want to end up in that situation. So next I want to talk just general strategy. When you're playing through a game mode, whether it's team deathmatch or control, king of the hill, whatever it may be, there's just certain strategies you want to take into every gunfight to make sure you're not putting yourself at a disadvantage. One that's general to many shooting games is you want to travel in groups or in packs. Don't run in like it's a Bruce Lee movie, essentially. In a Bruce Lee movie, he's taking on people who are coming at him one by one. If you do that against a collected and coordinated team, 9 times out of 10, you and your team are just going to get picked off one by one. So make sure you're waiting when people spawn or when you spawn to push together. Even if you're not in a party, if you're kind of playing with random people, just make sure you're sticking together. Odds are you have a better chance of winning with bigger numbers, obviously, than just walking in one by one getting picked off. Another thing that's important is being able to shoot while you're in cover. Too many times I see people when they get in cover and they see somebody coming at them, they feel like they need to rush out of cover and expose themselves in order to get the kill. But especially with the shotgun, being able to blind fire is very valuable, and I don't see that a lot. I don't see that happen a lot in a lot of my gunfights, actually. So if somebody's coming at you, a lot of times your instincts tell you to run at them and blow them away, which sometimes works, but sometimes you're also kind of challenging your timing and your connection versus theirs, and the Gears guys might not give that battle to you. But if you wait and you aim correctly and shoot over cover with a well positioned and timed blind fire, you can actually get a kill and stay in cover, which is important if you're fighting multiple people or if you got a sniper looking straight at you waiting for you to make a mistake. Gears is essentially a cover-based game, so the more you can stay in cover and do damage, I think the better position you'll be in. Then finally, there's another aspect of the game that they added in fairly recently, which is vaulting and grabbing. So when you're in cover, you can actually reach over and grab somebody if they're directly on the other side of cover. I personally wouldn't recommend this as a general strategy, just because usually people come off of cover when they see you bounce into cover, and even if you miss, then you're kind of screwed essentially. You're stuck in an animation, they can easily shoot you and get the kill. Vaulting on the other hand is actually a little more beneficial, just because when you're running at somebody, they more times than not expect you to sit in cover on the other side or just run around the cover. So every now and then you can kind of catch them off guard and get them with a vault. And even then, you know, that execution, I'll say if nobody's around you, definitely get that execution because you earned it. But if you see other people coming towards you as you vault and you get that kick, I would recommend taking that shot and then trying to either get out of there or take out the people around you, because again, that's another animation you'll get stuck in that'll put you at a disadvantage. So those are two things that are fairly new to the game that can work, but you just want to use it in a situation where you really think it's gonna pay off. Another thing to really know is just know the maps in the game and overall their layouts. So each map has different weapons and different placement of those weapons. So a lot of the key aspects of a fight are centered around knowing where the power weapons are, whether it's the boom shot or even like a heavy weapon like the buzzkill or the tri-shot, and then knowing where things like the grenades are as well. Being able to rush those in the beginning of a match will definitely give you an advantage that, you know, depending on how you manage your ammo, will help you maintain a lead in the kills or maintain your overall position in a space. Also be aware of just different environmental advantages and disadvantages. So knowing where you get the high ground obviously puts you at an advantage. Know where there's different cover and different areas where you can get cross-lancered, because that's essentially when the other team is flanking around and then you're kind of pinned in by a lancer from one direction, a lancer in another direction, and you're down in seconds really. And also just know some levels have different environmental mechanics to them. Like if you play on the ice level, if they shoot the ice below you, you can freeze to death. Or of course, if you're in the museum level, you can get killed by the lasers. Don't be that guy that gets killed by the lasers. Sometimes that guy that gets killed by the lasers. Also, just a general thing, and this pertains more to Guardian, or I guess if you aim to camp in a certain spot, I wouldn't stay in a spawn for too long. As the match goes on, the game kind of registers when your team is on one side or the other side of the map. So they will swap spawns eventually. And especially in Guardian, when, you know, as the leader, you like to stay in spawn, you don't want to get caught after 5 minutes or so with the team spawning behind you and getting an easy kill. So just be aware of which team is spawning where at all times, so you don't end up running into a team of people with spawn protection. It's an easy kind of self-explanatory one, but just something to keep in mind, especially if you aren't familiar with that and you're in Guardian kind of stuck at the spawn. And then this last tip is more for if you're playing seriously, or in general if you have good communication with those around you. But just practice different callouts. You know, if you realize there are certain parts of a map that have callouts, you can essentially use that communication to direct your team and kind of point out where people are going or where the next spot is. It's a good way, you know, especially professionally, to have an advantage and always make sure you're one step ahead of the other team. Again, this might not be what the average players do, and you can make up your own callouts if you want, just whatever everybody kind of can understand. But it definitely helps when you have a team full of people to be able to move as a unit. This last one might just be a personal recommendation of mine, but another good thing to know going into Gear 6 is just the story and the background lore. Of course, every game has had a campaign, and there's so much backstory behind different characters and different events going on in the world of Gears of War. So if you have time, I recommend going back and playing through some of those old games, really experiencing that first moment you see a boomer walk up on you, or just the moments between Dom and trying to get to Maria. I mean, if you know, you know. So, and if you don't have time for that, obviously there's many great YouTubers and YouTube videos available that will explain that stuff to you, and even Gears wiki pages, you know, things of that nature are a way to kind of brush up on the Gears lore in the background real quick. I don't know, a lot of you would probably agree, just Gears in general is so fascinating and so cool and interesting. Between the games and even the comics, they have different comics that go into a lot of stuff the games don't touch on. I hope they build on some of that stuff in Gear 6, but in the meantime, you can just kind of dig into the backstory, and ultimately you can even pick your favorite characters. That's a lot of what helps determine who you like to play as. You kind of see the link between the different maps and where they play into the story. Just something I recommend. Obviously, this franchise has been around for a long time, and the story is full of just rich and cool things that'll hopefully get you as excited as they get me excited. Now, I know I said 5 things you should know and master, but I wanted to throw a bonus one in there, and this is just one that can be important, I think, in Gears. Is just make sure you're always having fun. Gears can definitely get intense and get heated, even though it's slow paced. Again, a lot of times you might lose some shotgun battles, you might experience some lag, things that kind of fall into every game, but especially in Gears, a lot of us have a lot of pride in Gears going into matches. You might see somebody chatting about you being bad or something, or you might get executed, or they might kind of dance over you when they kill you. Just make sure to have fun. If you have to step away for a little bit, that's perfectly fine. I do it all the time. Just know, again, Gears can be fun. It might only be fun in bits and pieces for some, or you might play for a long time, but don't let it ruin your day. Don't let it ruin your experience, because in a weird way, it kind of comes with Gears. It's like the passion and just the dedication to it. So that's an obvious one, and just a bonus one I wanted to give you guys. I have to tell myself a lot of times, even though sometimes I love the game, there are other times where I'm about to throw my controller into the wall, and I'm sure you can relate to that. But just always remember to have fun with it. In any game you're playing, these are all meant to be fun, and there's a lot of cool people and fun things you can experience while you're playing. And that's it. Those are 5 things plus a bonus that you should know and master before Gear 6 comes out. And really, it applies to any of these games. I've had a chance to play all of them, so these are the things that I found most beneficial to me, and that if I was just starting off, I would definitely want to know going into a firefight to kind of make that learning curve a little less steep. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, what your tips and tricks are, if you agree with some of these, or kind of what you think about these in general. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this, and subscribe. Also, tell me what kind of Gears content you'd like to see in addition to this, and just share with your friends. And again, I appreciate all the support and all the love, and the Gears community is a unique and a great community, and until Gear 6 comes out, let's just keep brainstorming, throwing out ideas, talking about what we like, what we want to see. I think that's invaluable information that'll essentially make Gear 6 the game we've been waiting for. So thanks again, everybody, and I'll catch you later.